Hello, everyone. My name is Reagan Van Cleve, and I am the Membership Director at the Coastal Virginia Building Industry Association. I wanted to take the time today to put together a little recording of some information on retention. So back in April, our committee did a membership drive that was widely successful and brought in 40 new members and 74 renewals. With so many members coming to the association, it just means that retention is more important now than ever. So I wanted to take a few minutes today to talk a little bit about retention, membership in general, and why it's important is kind of how we'll start this conversation. So as you can see on the screen here, membership is important. Of course it is. That's what my job's for. So first and foremost, COVID-19 created a lot of challenges for us. Also, very unexpectedly, meetings were canceled. For many of us, life as we knew it changed. I know that that's certainly true for me. This is a new office job that I'm not used to. I'm used to, maybe having my bottoms not necessarily match my top. But more so, of course, events, conferences, home shows, and other major sources of our non-dues revenue were canceled and therefore unpredictable. And that's why membership needs our attention. When prioritized, membership can support the long-term sustainable growth of this association. And these 4 reasons on the screen is why. So the first is dues, right? So let's talk money. Last time I checked, being a member of the association was not free. Not only does a member pay dues just that one time at the beginning of their membership cycle, but they also pay it every year over that when they choose to renew. So if a member is a member for 9 years, then they're paying you that dues check 9 years over. The average member tenure is around that 8 or 9 year mark. So that's something that we can count on and can rely on. So just think of how much one member can contribute over the entirety of their membership tenure, just in those dues dollars. The second reason is customers. I don't usually like to use that word when we talk about, nonprofits and associations, but it's important to understand that members are the top buyers when it comes to our association's offerings. They're the ones, sponsoring our events and, coming to our events and engaging with us there. They're not just contributing just the amount that they're paying in dues, but they're also, putting their booth in the home show and things like that. That's also contributing to our bottom line. And of course, why we would think that membership and getting them in the door in the first place is going to be important. And then that third reason is stability. And we kind of touched on this, and that is, a predictable income stream, something that's gives us the ability to budget every year. So 2020 definitely showed us the importance of that, right? Usually members sign up for membership 1 year at a time. That's income that you can count on. Membership dues are a predictable income stream, unlike the event that must be canceled due to unforeseen circumstances, like a global pandemic, just hypothetically speaking. And then fourth is mission. This one is definitely maybe the most important and why we're here in the first place. Members are the reason we're here. And they help us accomplish our mission through their volunteerism, content creation, networking, support for our advocacy, and things like that. So strengthening our membership can only make our association stronger in the long run. So that's what kind of leads us into why we might be focusing more on retention in the coming months. So why retention? We want to work smarter, not harder, right? So recruitment does get a lot of glory, and membership drives are super fun. And, we always have rewards for bringing in new members, but retention is the unsung hero of membership growth. So let's think about how much easier it is for us to grow if we have a high member retention rate. When we lose 1 member, we have to recruit 2 in order to grow. So those 40 new members that we brought in April would have meant nothing if we ended up losing 42. We actually would have been down that month. So we want to make sure that we don't have more members going out the back door than we do the front door. And that's why retention is essential to growth. Also, we're all business people here, right? So we know that it costs more money to recruit new members, to onboard them, and to attract new talent than it is to retain the people that we have. It's actually 6 to 7 times more cheaper to retain your members or your employees than it is to get new ones. And then also, if you're doing retention right, you should know what to expect. So by keeping in touch with that member all year before their anniversary date, you're giving them the opportunity to communicate with you if they're unhappy. You have the opportunity to ask them if, there's something that they want to know more about, or, maybe any problems that exist long before that renewal invoice comes due. So with that being said, that's kind of just iterating what the importance of membership is and retention specifically. So how do we go about putting together a strategy? And that's where this chart comes into play. I'm a big fan of graphs and charts to kind of communicate my points. So just bear with me here. This is a retention progression chart that maps years of membership by retention rate. So where people's retention rates at each of their memberships all the way up until 10 years. The blue line are your builder members and the red line are your associate members. So you can see at the beginning of their membership in year one, their first renewal, they're renewing at about a 50% rate. That is a coin toss, heads, tails to renew. And for me, that's not odds that I like to deal with. I'm not much of a gambler, so I would love to see that number get higher. How can we get that number higher? Now, when you get to 2 years, we're increasing a little bit, right? We're up in the 60s, maybe higher 60s. Still not the funnest odds to work with. We're still kind of very high risk at this point. But you'll see that at year 3 is when you start to see those retention rates really jump. Therefore, and kind of as we put together a retention strategy, you'll see that a lot of our retention efforts are going to be focused on those individuals who are in their first or second year of membership, because as you can see, they're at the most high risk of not renewing. So whatever we talk about in the upcoming minutes is going to definitely be focused on those individuals who are in their first or second year of membership. And that's not to say that these people, in their 5+ years of membership, don't need some of the same, accommodations. It's just that they have, they're bought in, they're engaged at this point, and therefore we don't need to work as hard in order to get them to renew their membership. So what is the key to retention? The key is engagement. So if your retention efforts are focused on the end of the cycle instead of the beginning, you've already lost that member. Marketing Journal Incorporated, which is an organization that I derive a lot of my research from, released an annual benchmarking report that shows year after year associations with an established engagement program see an increase in retention rates. So when associations have a plan to go out and demonstrate their relevance and their value, there's a positive correlation with their members' renewals. The engaged member is the one that renews. So that is a mantra for this presentation today. So let's think of ways we can connect with new members throughout their first year of membership. How can we support them to make the most out of their membership? Maybe taking the extra steps to make them feel special. And these efforts, they can't just come from staff, but they have to come from existing members, right? I talked about this when I talked about recruitment. People want to hear from somebody who is already invested. When you go out and make a purchase, or you're thinking about making a purchase on Amazon or any online, or even if it's going to the store, what's the first thing that people do? They read the reviews. They want to know what other people who have already bought it think about it to see if it's something worth buying themselves. And that's, again, why that peer-to-peer connection and interaction is far more important than anything that staff can do. So I have put together and organized 4 winning retention strategies, and that is onboarding, structured communication, ambassadorship, and participation. So we do know some of the ideas of how to keep retention alive. And it's really these 4 prongs that are the most important. And for the purposes of coastal Virginia, we're already using a lot of these, but, I really want to discuss, how we can either create or enhance the way we use some of these practices. So just getting started with onboarding, right? Onboarding, or, sometimes we call it maybe orienting or orientations, is going to be the actual act. But onboarding is your chance for 2-way learning. And that sometimes is misinterpreted, especially in the association world. A lot of the times we want to send you an email with a bunch of links and a bunch of stuff, or take you to our website, which has even more stuff, or send a welcome packet that has, way too much stuff and is overflowing with those things. We're not just here to tell you all the great things that we have to offer, but to learn from you what it is that you want to know more about, what you joined for in the first place, and then matching those expectations with things that we do offer. And of course, everything that we offer is aimed at meeting those expectations of either growing their business, saving them time or money, or helping them to overcome a challenge. In that onboarding process, specific to our association, right? So if someone is, really looking to save money or, use a discount on a car, then a part of that onboarding process is getting them to understand how to do that and printing out a proof of membership form and how to fill it out and then when to take it to the dealership. I mean, something as simple as that could be a part of your onboarding process. As of right now, what we're doing is we are having, welcome packets put together and hand delivered, and hopefully our ambassadors will go over some of the material in there because there is a lot. We are also looking to start new member quarterly orientations, either virtual or in person. So that is something that's very exciting and can, help them to understand some of the benefits and services that the association has to offer. Structured communication is the second prong to great retention. And it's simply the idea we're keeping in touch with members all year long, just so that they're privy to what is going on in the association and knowing where to plug into all of that. And of course, just like any great marketing campaign, we want to stay fresh in their minds. One thing I will say about powerful communication is that it needs to be disruptive, right? So this is a trade organization and we're competing with, their volunteer time as well as the time that they're using in their own jobs. So they probably, if you're sending an email, they probably have a lot of emails. How can we make that email disruptive, a catchy subject line, maybe inserting video? One axiom I always kind of subscribe to, especially when it comes to the association world, is using personal testimony. Instead of telling me all the great things about our member rebate program, I want to hear your story, how it benefited you. Facts tell, stories sell. So anytime that we can insert, a member testimony or personal testimony, that's going to be a great way to communicate with our new members. For ambassadors, we already have a program in place. And as we move forward this year, we want to continue to make our phone calls, checking in, providing help if needed. I think for our ambassadors' benefit, I strongly encourage, not just sending the generic email, but to have a conversation, like maybe even meet for coffee to go over some of these things. People right now are really craving that personal touch. And if you are able to do that, I think it's going to pay dividends for you. So the last factor is participation. And in my opinion, this is going to be the most important. When people interact with the association, they have skin in the game. And it also helps them to find their purpose within the larger picture, right? So we have almost 470 members. That's just companies. That's over 20,000 people. So how do they find their little piece of the pie and make sure that, they're showing up, and we know that if they don't come, that it's going to be weird. So making sure that we're inviting them during our outreach to the upcoming event that we're having. And if they're not able to attend something, getting them to interact with us in some way, even if it's just liking us on Facebook or following us on Instagram, just getting them to interact, engage in some way. And, as an ambassador or as someone who's working in membership, one thing that's important is you always want to make sure you're removing any barriers to participation. And this is where we really come in to help them and make them feel more comfortable. When you're if you're inviting someone to an event, offer them a ride, ask to meet them at the door, let them know what time you'll be getting there, so they know that there's one familiar face that they can at least have, so that the fear of, showing up to an event alone as a new member isn't a part of the barriers that they might be facing in order for them to engage. I have a little graph going off of that, just iterating, different participation points or engagement points and the effect that it has on the tenure of membership. So this is something from the National Association of Home Builders. On the y-axis, you can see some of the offerings that they have. Obviously, you can make this applicable to any of the offerings that you're currently offering or that we're offering. So you can see that the average member tenure is about 8 years of someone who is non-engaged, someone who doesn't really participate in much. So we're looking at about 8 years. You'll see that number drastically jump when they do start engaging in things. For instance, going to IBS, the International Builder Show in either Las Vegas or Orlando, takes that 8 years and jumps it up to 11 and a half years is now their new member tenure average. Of course, things like education classes and things that are going to help them grow their business and differentiate themselves and their businesses are things that are going to make them want to keep coming back for more and want them to renew their membership. The one that I always think is funny is the nhb.org login. It's probably the same with the CVBIA login. Just by logging into the website and whatever they're finding on there is making them more engaged and wanting to renew their membership. So they went from 8 years to, again, 11 and a half years just from logging onto the website. That's why I said, yes, invite them to an upcoming event because we really love to get out right now after being in our homes for a year. But, don't overlook the fact that simply attending an education class virtually or logging onto the website or following us on social media isn't something that's going to impact their retention, because it is. So kind of lessons learned for the day is going to be, right, that membership is important, that retention is essential to growth. It's not just recruitment. Recruitment plus retention equals growth. The 4 strategies or the 4 prongs and factors of successful retention: onboarding, structured communication, ambassadorship, and participation. And then, of course, the key to retention is engagement. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to email me at rvancleave@cvbia.com. Phone number is 757-305-9042. Thank you very much.